Hello booktube, hello book friends. Welcome or welcome back to my channel and another tag video. Must be Tuesday, must be Tag Tuesday. And today I'm going to be doing the first date book tag, which was a brand new tag created by Marlicia. Is that how you pronounce that? I apologise if I'm mangling someone's name. Marlicia from Marlicia Muses, and Tahlia from Tahlia Nerds Out. And I was tagged by Pat at Book Chat with Pat. And Marlicia said the following about this tag. This original, as far as we can tell, book tag was inspired by my husband's suggestion that Tahlia and I used to brainstorm. Did you ever think of choosing a book as analogous to a first date with all its suspense and excitement? Yes or no? Now, it's been more years than I care to remember since I went on a first date, but I'll give it my best shot. So there are 8.5 prompts and a tag other people prompt. So we will see how we get on. So prompt number 1, what books do you regret buying? I don't think I specifically can name books. I think there have been books that I have bought on the spur of a moment, particularly online. Seems to be my weakness, rather than from a bookshop in person. Which have I've bought, got home, or have arrived, been delivered, and then when I ordered them, I think I really want to read that book. I really want to read that book, and then when it's arrived, I'm like, meh, So I don't think I've ever regretted buying. I think there are a few books that I have bought that I have yet to read, and that doesn't just include ones that I know it's going to take me a while to get to, for whatever because they're a certain book in a series and I haven't read the previous books in the series, for example, things like that. So yeah, some books I would say I do regret. Not so much regret buying, but regret not getting too quickly once I've bought them. Prompt number 2, do you DNF books? Why or why not? At what point do you DNF? If you do, how much time do you generally invest before DNFing? I've talked about this, I think, in other answers to sort of prompts. I do DNF. My rule always used to be like 100 pages, or if I was reading it on a Kindle and it didn't have page numbers, like 20% of the book, which obviously 20% can vary depending on how many pages the book is. And then I recently, last couple of years, changed that to 100 pages minus my age. So whatever the book is, it's 100 pages minus my age. So each year going forward, it becomes a page less. There are exceptions to that, because sometimes I think, I can't remember the name of the book now. I was reading it recently and I was thinking, I'm really not getting on with this. I'm getting to the DNF point. Like, I will carry on because I'd been told it was a good book. So I carried on and I did finish it, and it was a good book. It just had a really slow start and I just couldn't get into it, and I'm glad I stuck with it. And if I hadn't had that kind of recommendation as to, and I think this comes up in later prompts, so I don't want to say too much now, but if I hadn't had that recommendation from somebody else, I probably would have DNF'd it, or at least put it to one side. Sometimes I will put a book to one side, not because it's just not right for me at that moment in time. Although I think, probably another time I will enjoy it. And that can happen within a couple of pages, if I'm being honest. I'll pick a book up and go, no, I'm really not going to get on with this. But but I do want to read it. It's just not right for me right this minute now. So number 3, is there a book you did not want to come to an end, couldn't put down? And I'm going to combine this with number 4 because I think they're kind of similar. My answers are similar to both. So number 4 is, have you experienced withdrawal after finishing a specific book, not wanted to move on to other characters, wanted to reread the whole book or sections of it again immediately after finishing it, etc.? So there are a couple of books and also an author that I want to kind of didn't want his books to end, and I wanted to come back and reread. So one of the books I'm thinking of, and again I've mentioned this a lot on this channel, is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. I really enjoyed this book, and although this copy is over 1,400 pages, I really didn't want this to end, and really I almost wanted to reread it straight away, and I thought, no, I'm not going to, because A, it's 1,400 pages, and B, I need to think about it for a bit. And having thought about it for a bit, I think what I'm going to do is get another copy of the book, but in a different translation. And what I don't know, because cleverly this is a vintage, so it's an imprint of Penguin, I think, or Random House. It doesn't say who the translator is for this, which is great. That's really helpful. So I think I'm just going to have to buy another one and hope that the translator is somebody different. What this did prompt me to do was because I read that after rereading The Three Musketeers, and that has now prompted me into the rabbit hole of reading all of the kind of what are called the D'Artagnan romances. So I've got this is 20 years after, which is the next book after The Three Musketeers. So I'm kind of sticking with the author, and I'm going to keep reading his books. I've got a few others. So he wrote a werewolf novel, which I want to read, and I've got a copy of that. So yeah, that and the other author is one again that I mention regularly, is Craig Thomas, so writer of Firefox, and I really want to reread his novels. I've still got a couple of his standalones that I haven't read, but his Aubrey and Hyde series, and for some reason I really want to reread Firefox and Sea Leopard, which are both in this volume. I don't know why, couldn't tell you why. Just I've got it's like an itch that needs to be scratched. So at some point, maybe around Christmas time, when I've got a bit, some days when I haven't got a lot on my plate to do work-wise, I'll spend some more time, rereading those. So number 5, what keeps you invested in a book? Lots of things, really. So good plot, good characters, all the kind of typical cliche things. Sometimes a slightly different story, so a different take. I think somebody once said there's only in crime novels, there's only so many, there's like 3 plots or something like that. But anything that is a different take on one of those plots, I quite enjoy. So yeah, that's one of those things. And then where have we got to? Number 6. What prompts you to pick up a book? Cover, blurb on the back of the book, etc. I think if I'm in a physical bookshop, and I'm not looking for specific things, I'm just browsing, cover does do that for me. I will pick up a book because of a particular, picture or illustration on the cover. But also the the recommendations of friends and family. You know, sometimes I've seen, particularly being on BookTube, you'll see a booktuber mention a particular book, and then a little bit later you'll see it in in the bookstore or somewhere, and want to pick it up and so lots of different little things can play into that. Books online, I tend to be looking for specific things, so it doesn't quite follow. It's much more likely to be, I'm looking for a particular title or a particular author or something like that, and then that will. I'm not browsing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, that's I think enough on that. 7. Do you keep finished books to reread, or do you unhaul them? I do both. I think if it's a book that I really liked, I want to reread, even if it's not going to be for years, I will keep it. Or if it's a book that I want to keep for reference reasons, because non-fiction book, for example, because it fits one of my personal projects, then I'll keep it. If it's not going to be either of those things, then I will normally take it to the local book exchange box or a charity shop or something like that, and pass it on. The exception to that is probably books that I think somebody I know might like to read, and in which case I am kind of pretty much getting unhauling it. I'm just unhauling it intentionally to somebody else rather than unhauling it to whoever comes to the book exchange box next and fancies picking that particular book up. Number 8. Who or what do you trust most for book recommendations? I tend to, reviews in magazines, journals, things like that. Fellow booktubers. So I think I've got a book coming. Is it coming today? It's only just been released, and I think it was Hannah's Reads recommended this as one of a number of books at the beginning of the month that were coming out in kind of the first half of June. And it's called The Scrapbook by Heather Clark, and it just appealed to me. She described it. It just kind of appeals to me. I would guess it's a bit of an impulse buy, to be perfectly honest, because I have no knowledge of the author. I think it's even her first. She's a published author, but it's her first novel, I think, is I'm right in saying. But it was a kind of story about when it's set, and issues to do with historical issues with Nazi Germany and things like that, and it just appeals to one of my kind of personal projects, that I'm interested in, and so I thought I would give it a go. So I generally trust people who have recommended books that I've enjoyed before. So it's kind of what's the word? I guess it's the reliability of the recommender. So if they're consistently recommending books that I enjoy. Also, it's if they are a kind of a booktuber who has similar tastes to me, and you kind of get that from watching over time. So John at Must Read More, for example, he's he and I share like Alistair MacLean as a favourite author and things like that. So sometimes he'll mention a book and I'll go, I'll note that down and keep an eye out for it. And also David Murphy has quite an extensive World War II, Second World War collection, and that's an area that I'm interested in. So, if he was to mention a book about that, again, it's the kind of thing I would note down and keep my eye open for. I might not, rush out and buy it, but it's something that I'd keep an eye out for. So 8.5, 8.5. Bonus question: would you ever pick up a book and read it without knowing anything about it, or conversely, let someone else choose your book for you? Blind date, LOL. Yeah, both. I have done both. I've had people, kind of give me books unsolicited and say, "Oh, I thought you might like this." And generally, I will, read them without, having any preconception about whether I'm going to enjoy it or not. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. The time I tend to pick up books without knowing about it is when I'm on holiday and I've run out of things to read, or I'm just intrigued by something. So, a lot of times if we're staying, particularly if we're staying in this country and staying in a cottage or an Airbnb or something like that, there's often a shelf of books, and it's a bit like a free library, take one, leave one kind of principle. But very often I'll look at them and think, oh, that looks interesting. Give it a go. I don't know, it's the kind of the holiday feeling of, not being kind of stuck to, day-to-day conventions when you're at home and you can, break free of your reading habit. I don't know. That's about the only time I can think of that I pick up books without knowledge. Sometimes might do it in a bookshop, but there'll be something else that will have drawn me in, if you see what I mean. It'll be a cover, or it'll be in an area, it'll be in the military history section or the natural history section, or somewhere where if you want to find me in a bookshop, there are certain places to look for me. I'm either in the natural history section, I'm in the military history section, the travel section, or there's an order to go around the bookshop until you find me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, a last prompt is tag others. So Pat has tagged quite a lot of people, so I'll go back and have a look and see if there's anyone that I can tag who she hasn't already tagged, and then I will put a list in the description box below. But if you have been, thank you for watching, and I would like to say thank you to Marlicia and Tahlia for putting the tag together, coming up with the prompts. Thank you very much. And of course to Pat for tagging me. Thank you, Pat. And thank you to you guys for watching, and I will speak to you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.